Hello friends, welcome to this video. This is our third video in the dracozoology series where we explore the natural history of dragons and other dragon-like species in the world of Thera, which is basically Earth, just it has dragons. The subject of today's video is a very interesting dragon indeed. This dragon is called Dendrodrekis, and its name literally translates to tree dragon. Now, you would think, oh, it's named tree dragon. It probably lives in the forest, which is true. It probably lives in trees, which is maybe true for some individuals, but probably not most of them. And it, probably hunts tree-dwelling animals like monkeys and such. And there you would definitely be wrong, because Dendrodrekis does not hunt animals. It doesn't hunt plants, it hunts sunlight. Yes, my friends, this is a photosynthetic dragon. It is not really a plant, but it sort of acts like a plant, and it gets its energy from the sun instead of from consuming other creatures or organisms. Now, you might be thinking, an herbivorous dragon I can get behind, but a dragon that's like actually a plant, what the heck? And to that, I would say, why not? This dragon was not only a fun mental challenge to think about how this all would actually work, like how would it get energy from the sun, but it was also a fun design challenge because it went through several phases. I'm sure you can see by the drawing. It started out having a lot of separate fins, basically, because another idea behind this dragon was not only is it photosynthetic, it's also like a producer that is consumed by other animals. It's like the part of the food chain that supplies the energy to other things. And so I was thinking of tendrils that come off the dragon that other creatures would eat. And then it just didn't really look like a dragon at that point. So I restructured and I came up with this design. Now, I envision that there are many different types of Dendrodrekis, and probably some of them are definitely more tree-like, and this one just happens to be a little bit more dragon-looking. Naturally, I don't know why, my brain always dips into that evolutionary perspective, so I'm thinking that this particular species or subspecies of Dendrodrekis, is one of the earlier evolved species, so it's more close to the common ancestor of the tree dragons and the regular dragons. So that's why it looks more like a dragon. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. TLDR, it looks like a normal-ish, what you would expect a dragon to look like, because it, hasn't gone that far down this evolutionary path of being a plant, basically. So, and of course, this whole time I am lying to you because these dragons are certainly not plants. They are animals. Their cells are animal cells. So they did evolve from dragons. It wasn't like a convergent evolution type thing between the plants and then animals that ended up becoming dragons, although that would be a cool concept. But no, this is almost certainly not scientifically feasible, probably, but I like to think of these dragons as almost like corals. So while the dragon itself is not it doesn't have plant cells, which have chloroplasts, which do photosynthesis, they contain symbiotic algae that will do photosynthesis and then feed the nutrients produced by that process into the animal cells of the organism. And this is something that happens with corals. Their symbiotic algae is called zooxanthellae, something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not that type of biologist. And this, of course, the presence of these essentially algae within the cells of the dragon turns the dragon green, because these algae cells are full of chloroplasts, which are green because of photosynthesis. I literally forgot the name for chlorophyll. It's because of chlorophyll. Yeah, yep. All right, so at some point, when these these type of tree dragons were already dragons, then somehow these algae became endosymbionts in the cells of the dragon. It's definitely more feasible for it to happen with a coral, but in any case, that's what happened. Now, if you know anything about plants or photosynthesis, you're like, all right, so that takes care of fixing carbon, but what about fixing nitrogen? A lot of plants really, really need fixed nitrogen, biologically available nitrogen. It's super important for them. I forget why. It's been a long time since I took Intro to Biology, but where do we get fixed nitrogen? So a lot of plants in real life get their fixed nitrogen from bacteria in the soil. So there are bacteria in the soil that, make the nitrogen biologically available to the plants, and they can uptake that through their roots. But these dragons, interestingly, they don't have roots, so they can't really get that fixed nitrogen from the soil. So after doing a little bit of reading, because what is world building without reading and research, I have decided that while the dragons don't need to consume other plants or animals for food, they do occasionally, maybe once a month or so, take in bits of soil in which there are these bacteria that do not get digested, but then also become symbionts with the dragon that will fix nitrogen. Yes, this is also something that happens with corals. So I feel like I could have named this dragon coral dragon, but it's not in the ocean, so it's a tree dragon. Anyway, I hope that made sense. And worst case scenario, if it didn't, all you need to know is basically they're animals, but they have plant-like things inside their cells that make them like plants. I feel like that made even less sense. In any case, I just thought it would be really cool, okay? The science was exciting. All right. So now that we know that these dragons do photosynthesis, we know that they need light. They need to be able to capture that light and use it for fuel and energy. And so they have a good advantage in the fact that they can move, unlike many plants. They can move to optimal locations with maximum light exposure, which is why I said some of them might live in trees. They might sit on the branch of a tree because that is the best basking spot where there's a lot of sunlight. Or I envisioned this particular individual on the forest floor in a clearing, angling its wings towards the sun. And this is a position where these dragons can just sit for days, weeks, months, whatever. They need to maybe swallow a little bit of soil in there. They probably need to drink some rainwater, which I think it would be really cute if, rainwater and dew collects on their scales. There's definitely pictures of snakes with raindrops on their scales. I think it's so cute. And I think that these dragons would then use their long tongues to lick up the dew from their scales. And that is how they get water. In addition to I don't know, holding their mouth open for the rain. And if they're super thirsty, super dehydrated, and are on the brink, then of course they can move and look for food. But moving takes a lot of energy, so they're more inclined to not do that unless they really have to. Basically, their whole job is sitting there and basking in the sun. And that also reminds me of Rain Wings from Wings of Fire, if anyone has read those books. I know a lot of people who watch my videos have read them. Now, when I was reading these books, I read them really quickly, and I tend to sometimes skip over things when I'm reading really fast. But I swear, it's gotta be canon that rain wings have some sort of photosynthetic properties, right? Because the sun is so good for them, and they get energized from it, right? So did I miss an explanation in there that they've got some type of photosynthesis going on, or am I just imagining that because I think it would be cool? In any case, let me know. So yes, they sit and they bask, they angle their wings toward the sun, and that's how they get energy. As in my original vision, I assume that some creatures do occasionally nibble at the wingtips of these dragons, the Dendrodrekis. I think I'm changing the pronunciation of that, but in any case, I can spell it. That's all that matters. Anyway, so I was thinking that there are definitely some species of this dragon, which I guess is, I'll just make it like a genus at this point, because, why not? Some species of this probably have more like frills and stuff where, other creatures can eat them and it doesn't really impact them. Kind of like, there are like caterpillars and stuff munching on trees and they still survive. They're like, I don't need all my leaves, it's fine. But this dragon, as I was designing it, I was like, wow, there's not a lot of membrane there to catch the sunlight. So it's probably important for it to hopefully not get eaten, especially when they're young, these dragons, because they'll be a lot smaller, right? So it'd be more devastating to lose some of that like photosynthetic membrane. So I think that some of the smaller species of these guys is poisonous. Yeah. Interestingly, like a lot of the plants that you would keep in your house are poisonous. So is this a house plant? Maybe like a small one. I don't know. Would they run away if you tried to catch them? Maybe really slowly and only if they had enough energy. Sorry, I'm sidetracked. But yes, this species at least would be poisonous. And probably other species that don't have a lot of membrane. But some species, maybe like the species that grow larger and grow like many separate membranes, sort of like the original design I had for these guys, those would maybe be less poisonous. And now thinking of poison, that also makes me think of fruit. And then that leads to the question of how would these guys even reproduce? So I would say that these guys probably once a year in the spring grow a flower, maybe out of their tail or out of their head. I don't know. Oh, now I want to draw this. Anyway, so they grow a flower. Oh, out of their head would be so cute. Okay, they grow a flower out of their head. And it gets pollinated by, bees and stuff. And then they can start to develop an egg. And then they'll lay an egg like a dragon, like the flower doesn't then develop into a fruit. So they do actually lay an egg that looks like it's covered in moss and hopefully kind of blends into the forest floor. They usually only lay one egg at a time, but they'll lay one egg every year. They do not take care of their young. The young are just left to fend for themselves, but they have photosynthetic organisms in their tissues, so finding food, quote unquote, isn't that much of an issue. But yeah, so then later, probably still in the springtime, the eggs hatch and these little baby green dragons pop out and they have like little tiny stumpy wings and stumpy membranes and stuff, and they just go looking for the sun. And maybe even like the younger dragons would be more prone to being in those trees where maybe they're out of reach of predators but also can extend their wings toward the sun. But yes, so there are also many species of trees that need conditions to be met so that their seeds will grow. So I kind of like that idea for the eggs to hatch. So maybe for some of these dragon species, there needs to be heavy rainfall in order for the egg to hatch. And some of them need forest fires to go through for their eggs to hatch. So that's something that certain coniferous trees have, like their seeds don't germinate unless there's a fire, which is kind of metal and also like ecologically important. In any case, that is basically all I have thought of for the natural history and biology of the Dendrodrekis. That is like my field guide entry for my dracozoology field notes. But if you have any other ideas, either about this particular species of Dendrodrekis or ideas for other species of Dendrodrekis, let me know, because I feel like there are probably so many interesting ways to do a plant dragon. And of course, the entire point of this series is like, let's all just make and share dragon species. So ideas for these guys, let me know. Ideas for totally unrelated dragon species, also let me know. There's even like a whole channel on Discord about dracozoology ideas and suggestions. So yes, I am very eager to hear your ideas. You know, even if you have ideas for like improving upon this particular species slash design that I drew, totally let me know in the comments. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about the biology of dragons. So yeah, let's just have fun with it. And of course, I have to say thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it was cool, or at least a little bit interesting or entertaining in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I hope you are having a great day, and I'll see you around.